What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the First and 10 podcast with Blake Bruner. Finally back. We've got a lot to talk about. There was a lot going on over the weekend. TJ Watt signed an extension. Garrett Wilson signed an extension. George Karlaftis just signed an extension today. I'm recording this on Sunday night. And over the weekend, I did all my division winner predictions and even the record. I used the playoff predictor that they've got on on Google, and some of my records, and I don't think they're going to turn out the exact way that I predicted. It's really hard to predict every single game, but you get a general idea of who you think's going to finish first, second, third, and fourth in each division. But yeah, we finally got some decor in here, trying to make it a little less. What's the word for it? Just not so boring, I guess. Recording in an unfinished basement. I mean, maybe it'll improve in the future, but this is where we're at right now. We're recording in the basement, but it's not the location that matters all the way. It's the football talk. So let's get right into it. I'm going to be doing these division by division, and I'm going to go from what I think is the worst division to the best division. So today we're going to be starting off with the NFC South. Overall, I just don't think that they have a really high ceiling. I don't think anybody's going to win the Super Bowl. I don't think in that division. I don't think anybody's going to win a playoff game in that division. Even, I mean, if I don't know if they had it to where division winners wouldn't make the playoffs for some reason. I don't even think they'd make the playoffs. Any team, I don't think anybody will have a good enough record. I think there is one team that I think will have a pretty good record, 11-6. So that probably would get them into the playoffs, even if division winners didn't automatically make it. But yeah, let's dive right into it. I'm going to go from worst to first also in the division to make it a little easier. First off, I'm going to be talking about the New Orleans Saints. I mean, sadly, I just don't see the Saints having a good season at all. Like, there's no outlook or multiverse thing that I see or path to where I can see them making the playoffs, let alone winning their division. And it's the easiest division in football. I mean, in the records prediction thing that I did, I have them going 2-15, which is probably a little crazy, and I'm sure they'll win a couple games. It's hard to predict upsets whenever you're doing the predictions online, just every single game prediction before the season starts. Maybe it's a little easier whenever you're doing like weekly pick'ems throughout the season, but like not right now. So, and it's just hard to find winnable games on their schedule. The only two games that I had them winning against, which honestly they are kind of upsets, were the Patriots, which in my mind is an upset. I think Patriots will be a decent team, definitely much improved from last season, and I had them beating the Falcons as well. So I had them going 1-5 in the division, which, saying it out loud, you'd think, they might go 2-4. Usually they split with the other teams in their division. I mean, they could even go 3-3, and that's where those extra wins comes from. I did a team ceiling and a team floor, and for the Saints, I had their ceiling at 6-11, and their floor is at 2-15. So what my prediction was on the predicting every game, I have them at their floor. But I mean, they did some good things this offseason, and they also just didn't do enough to wow me. They added Brandon Cooks on a 2-year, $13 million contract. They've got Will Clapp, center, for a 1-year cheap deal, $1.4 million. Here they've got Jack Stoll, 27 years old, tight end, 1 year, $1.1 million. Justin Reed's the biggest signing that they did. I think it's a 3-year, $31 million deal. And as a Chiefs fan, the background, Justin Reed was a very good player last year. In coverage, he was so-so, but I mean that guy can tackle. I mean, and that's really I think what the Saints need. They need to be able to if they're in third down and long, they need to be able to get the guys on the ground. They can't let guys get yards after catch or like yards after contact or anything like that. So that's really that's the way that they are going to win is by good tackling defense. And they also re-signed Juwan Jennings, Chase Young, and Landon Young, all on pretty good deals, except for maybe the Chase Young deal. Maybe I didn't watch enough Saints games last year, but I think I saw the stat earlier to where he hasn't ever gotten over 10 sacks in a season, and to be paid that kind of money for not having more than 10 sacks in the season is a little questionable to me, especially after you're the second overall pick, the Commanders take you and you get let go by them. And I know he was a 1-year rental for the Saints last season, but I don't think that maybe they just wanted to keep him because they needed good players on the defensive side, and they just wanted to be watchable almost. Overall, before we start discussing their draft, I just don't see the Saints, like I was saying earlier. There's nothing that wows me. I mean, Alvin Kamara does to an extent, but at this point in his career, I don't think he's game-changing. I mean, he'll win you some games. I have in my notes here that the only way that they are probably going to win games is from Alvin Kamara just taking over the game, but I don't think he's able to take over the season, and I also don't think that his quarterback play is going to be good enough to allow him to take over as many games as is needed to be able to compete and be competitive week in and week out. I just don't think that's possible. And they got to hold offenses to under 20 points to be able to win games. I mean, that's just the bottom line for me. And that's what I'm saying about the Justin Reed signing. He's a good tackler. I think they know that they need to be able to make stops when it's needed, and their defense is still going to be, have holes in it, and they're going to let up probably a lot of points. They'll probably be middle of the pack to below average in defense, and that also is probably going to be part to their offense being so bad. I mean, a lot of games last year, especially towards the back half of the year, they just were not very good offensively. They put up 10 points against the Raiders last year. I think they lost a game to the Giants, like 14 to something. Let me look that up actually, because I want to see what that score was. Got to look up the 2024 schedule. Oh, they beat the Saints, or they beat the Giants, 14-11. I mean, that's how you're going to have to win these games here. I mean, they lost to the Rams 21-14. They lost to the Commanders 20-19. So, I mean, even holding teams to 20 points doesn't seem like it's even going to be enough. Maybe this is just me doubting a year two Spencer Rattler or a Tyler Shuck. I just don't see it, you got to have a good quarterback to win in this league. And as of right now, until either of those guys show me something in week 1 or week 4, I just do not see them winning a lot of games. I think they'll be in the Arch Manning discussion next season in the draft. And or even for really any other first-round quarterback that is going to be eligible and is entering the draft, because these guys aren't it. And I was really confused whenever the Saints took Tyler Shuck this year, because I don't think anybody thought of him as a franchise guy, which was the going into the draft. I don't think anybody thought that. So whenever they took him in the second round, it was like, what are you doing? Because if you're going to take a guy next year, then what you should have taken a player really just best available is what you should have done there. I mean, like, because unless Tyler Shuck is going to be your guy for the next 5 to 10 years, you should not have taken the quarterback there. You should have, because it's also going to be a quarterback battle, you know. So I just don't. It really blew my mind that day whenever they did that, and I think that, you know, I think that they will be drafting a quarterback round 1 again next year, and it's mainly going to be because they're in the position to do what, you know. I think they'll be a top 5, maybe even top 3 draft pick probably is what they'll be. So I have the Saints finishing last. They probably, if I had to, you know, put a number on it, I think they'll finish obviously 4th, but I think that they will probably be around like 3-14, 4-13, something around there. I did like what they did in the draft outside of Tyler Shuck, though. Kelvin Banks Jr. was a really good addition, 9th overall. And, I mean, like, I will never complain about an offensive lineman being drafted in the first round unless it's, you know, way overvalued offensive linemen. I mean, those guys are probably offensive linemen, especially the tackles. Left tackle is probably the most, arguably second, but I think third most important position in football, quarterback being 1 and pass rusher being 2. But, you know, left tackles, or just tackle in general, is right up there at number 3. So I really like what they did there. They drafted the D tackle out of Texas as well, beefing up the trenches. Really, any trenches pick is, you know, unless it's huge reach, I'm not going to complain about it. And we'll talk about that later in this video, actually. But yeah, overall, you know, I just think Saints fans are going to be waiting for 2026. You know, I mean, I just don't think it's going to be a tough year for Saints fans, and I wish them the best. So, all right. So finishing 3rd in the division, I have the Carolina Panthers. I think really these next 3, the other 3 teams in this division can all be interchangeable, just because of the uncertainty at quarterback with the Falcons and the Panthers. Not Falcons. Michael Penix showed a lot of flashes last year. Not necessarily that it's like I question his ability to play or if he's going to be an above average quarterback. I think you just want to know how good he's going to be, because, you know, it's hard to put a number on what their record will be, because, I mean, if he plays like a top 10 quarterback, they probably will win the division. Well, it'll be really competitive. And same thing with Bryce. I think the Panthers season definitely depends on how good Bryce Young plays this season. If he plays how he did towards the end of last year, I think that they probably won't make the playoffs, but I think they will probably get in between 7 to 9 wins, you know. But the most important part is I think they're going to be more competitive, which is what they need. And I know they want to see results out of Bryce. I know they do. And I think if he gives you 8 wins with improvement, like this year, I think they, you know, maybe won't sign him to a contract right now, but I think they for sure will keep him for his 4th year. His 4th year. And especially, you know, now that he's just not getting weapons. I mean, last year he was throwing to Xavier Legette, who was their first-round pick last season. And he had some flashes, but he wasn't, you know, spectacular. And they also have, like, David Moore, who was pretty decent last year. I think he had around 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. You know, he played a role in that offense for sure. I know Adam Thielen was there. I believe he is still there. So, yeah, I mean, the receiving core is definitely going to upgrade with Tet McMillan going there, and I'm really excited to see Bryce Young play. I think their ceiling is 9 wins, and I think their floor is 5 wins. You know, I think that's, in terms of the NFL, I think that's a pretty big margin. but that's just really how uncertain I am on how well Bryce Young's going to play. And also just how, like, even if he does really improve, how many wins will that result in? Because their team still isn't, like, great by any means. They finished last in run defense last year, which just was a killer for them. And I know Derek Brown was out the entire season. I'm sure that will improve going into this season. But, how much better are they really going to get? I mean, if they can get it just average, I'm sure they would take that as a win. And, I think offensively they'll be a lot more dynamic if Bryce Young is better. I know they have Chuba Hubbard. They signed Rico Dowdle also, who I think is an underrated signing. He signed for $3 million on a 1-year deal. And I think that 1-2 combo is going to be good. They also drafted Trevor Etienne in the 4th round, which is, I don't see him getting a great amount of playing time unless something happens to Chuba or even Rico Dowdle. I think depth chart going into training camp at least is going to be Chuba at the top, and then Rico Dowdle, and then Trevor Etienne. And that can always change. Going into training camp. We'll just see how it plays out. I believe everybody reports to training camp this week. I know that I believe the Lions full team reported on Friday, but I'm pretty sure everyone's going to be in training camp by this week. So really excited to see these position battles. Free agency signings that the Panthers got were Bobby Brown III. He's 24. He's only 24 years old. Defensive tackle, 3 years, $21 million. Pat Jones II, 26 years old, linebacker for 2 years, $20 million. Tershawn Wharton, 26, D tackle, 3 years, $54 million. I'll talk about that in a second. And then they got a safety they got Trayvon Moehrig, 25 years old, safety, 3 years, $51 million. And then I already spoke about Rico Dowdle. I love what they did with the D-line. They knew their weakness was just not being able to stop the run. And hopefully with Derek Brown returning and signing these two guys, they'll beef up those trenches. And like I said earlier, I will never complain about beefing up the trenches, because that's what you need to do. You need to be able to stop the run. You need to be able to make quarterbacks throw the ball, hopefully force them into mistakes. And I think the Panthers did a really good job with that. Trayvon Moehrig is a great signing, I think. I forget who their previous safety was, but I was reading an article about how he wasn't too great for them. So this is overall a win for them. He's also young, 25 years old. He'll definitely play out his contract as long as he lives up to the number amount that he's got. So overall, good free agency additions. Okay, J.C. Horn, 25-year-old cornerback, signed a 4-year, $100 million extension this offseason. I think that's it. At the time, was the highest paid cornerback in the league, but only for a little bit, because I think Derek Stingley Jr. got paid more, and I know Sauce Gardner just got paid more, actually a couple days ago, around the same time as Garrett Wilson. So yeah, I mean, those are big deals. They kept some offensive linemen as well. They were signed a couple. They were signed David Moore. Like I was saying earlier, he had a good year for his role on the team, And they also resigned Tommy Trimble, 25, tight end, to a 2-year, $10.5 million contract. So $5 million and a quarter for Tommy. So, I admittedly did not watch many Panthers games until towards the end of the year, and I know they had that rookie. He was rookie last year, going into his second year. Jatavion Sanders as well. So that's an interesting signing. You can never go wrong with 2 tight ends, though. You'll be able to run 12 personnel. But yeah, the biggest thing for me with the Panthers was the draft that they had. Getting Tet at number 8 was huge for Bryce. I mean, if you're going to ask your quarterback to go into this year and, ask him to perform, this is the last shot that you got most likely. You got to get him weapons, and that's what they did. I mean, this guy, Tet, hopefully he really helps Bryce evolve into who they want him to be. I think he definitely can. I mean, Tet's, he's a very physical player, very tall player, a very, from what I read, very Mike Evans-like player. You can throw it up to him, he goes up and gets it. Just all-around great player. So I'm glad that they did that. Nick Scorton, edge out of Texas A&M, they got in the second round at pick 51. That's a great pickup too. I mean, again, like we were saying earlier, their defense just was a huge liability last year, and they beefed up the run defense, and to get that pass rusher is pretty nice. I saw he dropped 30 pounds, I believe, and he's saying he's faster, he's just as strong, and it's not going to affect how he gets sacks in the league. And I know pass rushers, they take a couple years to develop, so if he doesn't perform this year, do not freak out if you're a Panthers fan. As long as he shows flashes, I think that's a good sign. And maybe next year or the following year would be more of a judgment year for Nick. And, I mean, same thing with Princely. Obviously not as high as a prospect, but, I think same applies for Princely, the edge out of Mississippi. Trevor Etienne, we touched on him earlier. I just don't see him having a big impact unless he just really takes the team, like he really takes over as the second running back, because I think Hubbard's good. I think he's not gonna get replaced, and really I think Trevor Etienne's biggest way into playing time is if one of those guys gets hurt, whether that's Rico Dowdle or if it's Chuba Hubbard. So I think that Trevor Etienne will eventually work in maybe next year after Rico's gone, if he doesn't have a awesome year and they resign him to a longer deal. I think he'll work in more next year. And their running back room, is really surprising to me, just because they drafted Jonathan Brooks last year, and he was supposed to be their guy, and I know he was coming off a torn ACL. He's coming off another torn ACL now, and he's on the PUP list or IR, and he's not going to play this season. And that's just really devastating, because I know he was a great prospect out of Texas, and that's just really devastating for him, the team, and I really hope that he's able to recover. But, I mean, just the same knee twice, I just feel bad for Jonathan Brooks. It's terrible. I mean, I wish he could have the chance to show what he's got. The injuries are terrible, but that's just the NFL for you, and they also lost Miles Sanders, but they just replaced him with Rico Dowdle, and I think Rico's an upgrade, so I'm not too worried about that. And they also lost Jadeveon Clowney. He was good for them last year. Good, but he was definitely a good role player for them last year, and I don't see this as a huge loss for them. So I'm not necessarily worried about him departing from the team. But overall, I do think for the Panthers, if Bryce plays well, and if he plays in between that range of 12 to 14, ranked quarterback, I do think that they have a chance at winning the division at 9-8. I think, but that's also going to be if they've got to have the tiebreaker over the Bucks because I don't see them finishing any lower than 9-8. So you've got to win both of those games against the Bucks, or have to have a bit better division record in general. And I just I think it's slim chance, but crazier things have happened in the NFL. So I've got them as a chance to win the division, but I have them officially in third in the division. And I'm just excited to see what Bryce can do because I've always wanted to believe in Bryce to win, and do good in the league. So whenever last year he had that stretch, that last game against the Falcons in Week 18, that was the game I was watching last year. It was just fun football. Bryce can ball out, and I just, I think that he can. I know that he can. I've seen him do it. It's just, can he do it on a consistent level like these other guys are going to do in his division, I think. With that, let's move on to second in the division, and I think this is actually the most intriguing team. I think this is the one that I have. It's definitely. I really think that outside of the Saints, I don't really question how much this team or what this team's going to do. I think I have an idea of what this team's going to do, and I think that that's just going to be that they're going to be an okay football team, and okay to good. I don't think they'll be great, though. That's going to be the Atlanta Falcons. I have their ceiling as 10-7 and their floor at 8-9, so not as big of a margin as Carolina, but I think they did good things this offseason. I liked what they were attacking in the draft. We'll start with that first, actually. We'll start with their draft because that definitely was the biggest thing or move they made this offseason. So they drafted Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Georgia, with the 15th overall pick. And then, almost the shocker, this might have been the shocker of the night, they traded up with the Rams and drafted James Pierce Jr., the defensive lineman out of Tennessee. Now, I know a lot of people were questioning the move, and I get it. Giving up a first for next season is a little questionable, especially whenever your team's got needs. You're not really in the Super Bowl now this year category. And so I personally, if I were the GM of the Falcons, I probably wouldn't have done it. But because they did it, I'm glad they took the right position. And that's just what I think about it. If you're going to do it, at least take the right position. And they did. They really needed pass rushers, and they got two of them in this draft. And I think they're both going to be starting immediately, probably. They might rotate a little for the first couple weeks. But I think that eventually both of these guys are going to be starters for the Falcons, probably for around 3 years, 4 or 5, and maybe even more if they get extended and if they play well. The Xavier Watts selection was also good. They traded with the Eagles for that pick, and I just overall love that they attacked the defense because for the past, I don't know how many years now, it's got to be at least 4, they've went offense in the first round because they drafted Kyle Pitts, then they drafted, I believe Bijan was next, and then they got, or was it Drake London next? I'm not sure. I think it might have been Drake London, then Bijan, and then who did they go with last year for number 1 overall, or for first? I'm not sure. I don't remember, but I just know that they have gone offensive heavy a lot in these drafts, and it's good to see them finally getting pass rush. I know that they haven't had a great pass rush in a long time, and it's definitely important that they did because they also lost Grady Jarrett to the Bears. So just getting those 2 pass rushers was great. I love that they did that. Don't love giving up the first, but sometimes, you just have to take the swing. And I don't hate what they did, but I also am not the biggest fan of it either. In free agency, they also attacked that defensive line. They got Leonard Floyd on a one-year deal for $10 million. And, I think that's a low-risk deal. He hasn't had under 8.5 sacks in the last 5 seasons. And I know that he's 33 years old, but that's really good. That's really good money. Money. Sorry, that's really good value. I think to get that, and they also signed Morgan Fox to a 2-year, $8.5 million deal, and it really just beefing up the trenches. This Atlanta team, I think, is going to look different this year on the defensive side. I think them being able to get after the quarterback and stop the run is going to take a lot of pressure off of Michael Penix and that offense to score a bunch of points this year, which I think they also will. And I don't see them overall as that great team yet. I think it's one of those things where I'm not so high on them before the season that I'm willing to go out on a limb and say they're going to go 12-5 and win the division, like you could predict for other teams who maybe didn't show it or show flashes last year of it. I think that they need to prove it before I start giving them those types of flowers. But they resigned Cordero Hodge, the wide receiver who got the game-winning touchdown in overtime against the Bucs last season in that awesome game. I was sick for that game, and it was terrible because Thursday Night Football hasn't been very great recently. There hasn't been – well, obviously there was good games, and I would die for any game right now. But you don't really get games like that on Thursday Night Football. And I was sick and I fell asleep during the halftime show. And I woke up and my phone was blowing up because of all the fantasy points that were being scored that night. And I had to go watch the highlights. And and he's also a very good special teamer. I believe he Pro Bowled last year, which is awesome for him. And I'm glad he got re-signed to a 2-year, $5.5 million deal. They also resigned Mike Hughes, cornerback, for 3 years, $18 million, which is, every team pretty much has a weakness at corner. So the fact that they have 2 corners locked up on deals for a couple years is great with AJ Terrell and Mike Hughes. So it's good to know that they had that figured out, especially because their corner depth isn't that great either. But you could say that for so many teams in the league. Good corners are hard to find, and I think that if you even have a startable corner, you need to sign him. I think that's could also be said for offensive linemen. Usually you don't see good offensive linemen hitting free agency. It does happen on occasion because either, teams can't pay them because they are in really bad cap situations, or teams just aren't managed well. And those are really the only 2 reasons that you let an offensive lineman go. You watch the Chiefs, Joe Thuney's really good, right? Joe Thuney's really good. But to trade him and get value to be able to re-sign Trey Smith was big because in the long run, Trey Smith's going to be here for years on end. And Joe Thuney, he's a little up there in age. He did great when playing for us. I can't believe that he was playing left tackle last year towards the end of the season, and he did good at it. Obviously, that's not his main position, so he wasn't, phenomenal, like how we like. But I'm glad that we ended up resigning Trey Smith, and that's just to circle back. My point is that those players shouldn't hit free agency, and I think it's starting to get like that with cornerbacks too. And even if they're just starting cornerback 2s, they shouldn't hit free agency. So good on the Falcons for getting that done. I'm really excited to watch their offense this year. Watching them last year, specifically their final 2 games, I think it was their final 2 games, the Commanders game was amazing to watch. I was watching it intensely because I had Jaden Daniels as my fantasy football quarterback, and that game pretty much won me my championship. The fourth down conversion from Penix to London was insane. I mean, I forgot who I was rooting for a minute because that game was just great, and Michael Penix was playing out of his mind, and Jaden Daniels was just out of this world as well, and they both play out of their mind that day. And then to do it again a week later and go in a shootout with Bryce Young in Week 18, a game that really doesn't matter. Obviously, to the players, it matters. They don't want to be replaced. They also want to have momentum going into next season. So, but in the whole scheme of things, I believe they were already eliminated from the playoffs. And if they weren't, the Buccaneers already, I think they were playing the Saints. Or they were, they weren't really playing for much is what I'm trying to say. But, they balled out, and I'm excited to see what they do this season. I think Drake London's going to be really good again. Bijan Robinson could be the best running back in the league this year. We say it every year, but Kyle Pitts might take a step forward. We'll see where that ends up. I believe he's in a contract year, so if he's going to do it, now would be the year. And their offensive line is good. I know they lost a center, and he was really good. I don't think they could afford to pay him. And also he was hurt, I believe, half the season last year. So, and they did good without him still, So, and that's really contradicts my point, I guess, on letting good offensive linemen go. But, that's just one of the categories where, you can't pay them. So, you got to let them go if you can't pay them. But, just overall, I love that the Falcons attacked their biggest weakness in the draft. I love that they re-signed Mike Hughes to a multi-year deal, and I'm so excited to see this offense headed into year 2 of Michael Penix Jr. They can definitely win the division for sure. I mean, 10-7 will get it done in this division. The Buccaneers have a hard schedule as well, so it's definitely possible. I think they just can't lose games like they did last year. I mean, they lost to the Saints. I believe, did they lose to the Saints both times? Let me take a look at this. Because if they lost to the Saints both times, that's just games they can't lose. And, I mean, it's kind of crazy because they either got blown out or these games were really close. I mean, losing to the Steelers at home, you only put up 10 points. I get you had Kirk Cousins at that time, and also that Steelers defense was relentless that day. I believe it was the Fox game, and it was T.J. Watt was destroying that offensive line that game. And okay, so they beat the Saints week 4, 26-24, very close. The following week, they won against the Buccaneers, and then they beat the Panthers the following. Okay, so they actually. Oh, okay, here it is. They lost to the Saints 20-17 in New Orleans. So I mean, I think you have to play really well in the division to win this year. I think you got to at least go 4-2. I'd say if you can split with the Buccaneers, split with the Panthers, and then sweep the Saints, I think you've got a good shot at winning the division. But yeah, I just don't have them winning this year. I mean, they very well could. That is not out of the picture at all. I think they very well could. I just think my number one team in the NFC South, a.k.a. the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, will be taking this division. I think that they will finish. Their ceiling is 11-6 to me, and their floor is 8-9. The only reason it's as low as 8-9 is just because as I'm going through their schedule, it's just kind of brutal, and it's kind of similar to how the end of last year was, to where it's really, really brutal in the beginning, And then towards the end, it kind of mellows out a little bit, and I can see win streaks happening for the Buccaneers, a good win streak going into the playoffs. So here's their schedule. Week 1, they play at home, or away in Atlanta, and then they go on the road again to Houston to play the Texans. They could very well go 0-2 to start the season, and then they play the Jets, which is definitely an easier game compared to the previous two. But then here's a stretch that really is really nerve-wracking if I'm a Buccaneers fan. So they play the Eagles week 4 at home, go on the road to play Seattle, come back home to play San Francisco, and then go to Detroit for Monday night. I know they beat Detroit and Philly last year, and the Philly game that was not the Super Bowl winning champion Philadelphia Eagles that they played. And, props to the Bucs for being able to get them out of their comfort zone and go find a way to win that game. I believe that game they held Jalen Hurts to I think he might have got hurt that game too at some point. Maybe I'm thinking of a different game, but I know that he did not have that many passing yards in the first half. I believe it was under 100 for sure. But I don't see them winning against Philly in week 4. That Seattle game is going to be difficult. If the 49ers are healthy, that's going to be difficult. And then playing in Ford Field on Monday night against the Detroit Lions, that's going to be rough. And then also that's only the first half. That's only the first half of the stretch too that they have. They play against the Saints. They get a little break after that game. They get the bye, and then they play the Patriots, who are very much improved, the Buffalo Bills, the Los Angeles Rams, and then the Arizona Cardinals. I know the Cardinals and Patriots aren't if you were to put these lines out right now, the Bucs would be favored in both of those games, but I also don't think that those are slouch games either. No game in the NFL is a slouch game. All these guys are incredibly talented and are incredibly good at what they do. That's why the term any given Sunday is a thing. Any of these teams can win. Even these Saints games and the Jets games aren't going to be slouch games. But on a talent, if you're evaluating talent, the Bucs, they're going to have a hard stretch here. And in this stretch, I have them going from weeks 4 to 13. I have them going... I do have them going 5-4. So and this is the other thing too, is I think that is a tough stretch, but I do think that they can win a lot of these games. I have them winning against the Seahawks, the Niners, the Saints before the bye, beating the Patriots after the bye, and then losing to Buffalo and the Rams, and then beating the Cardinals. And then after that Rams loss, I have them going on a 4-game win streak. So definitely, the Buccaneers can definitely go 11-6, and that's where I think they probably will end up. I just think that they are overall going to be a good team this year, and that offense, man, I'm excited. I was talking about Atlanta's offense, and I was excited to see that. What I'm excited to see is this offense again. Baker Mayfield has just transformed him into just. For sure, top 10 quarterback, right? For sure, top 10 quarterback this going into this year at least, and just all the weapons around him. And I know Liam Cohen is out the building, but they were great before he got there too. And I think people forget that because I forget who was the offensive coordinator the year before, but he did just as good, and that was Baker Mayfield's resurrection year, and they were great. So I don't see the Buccaneers just falling off. just because Liam Cohen isn't there. They signed Chris Godwin to a 3-year, $66 million contract. And that guy, I don't know if people are going to remember this, but he was playing like one of the best receivers in the league last season before he, I believe, tore his Achilles. I don't know if I have it in here in my notes. I believe it was either ACL or Achilles, one of the two. And he was just playing phenomenally. I mean, I believe fantasy football wise, he was the wide receiver too. And I know that's not everything, but that definitely shows that you were being productive on the field, So they resigned him, Ben Bredesen, to a 3-year, $22 million contract. And, I mean, he's, good offensive linemen don't hit free agency unless you can't pay them for whatever reason, or if you're just not a great organization. So, and the Bucs are. They are a good organization. So, they got him. And then Levante David re-signing again on a 1-year, $10 million contract. And, I mean, that guy is, he's their leader on defense. He's a great tackler. He's good in coverage. And he's just, he's a great blitzer too. So I'm really excited to see him again on that defensive side. And they really need it because they aren't great necessarily on defense. I believe they were below average last year. I think they were around in the 20s in terms of in just overall defense. And part of that is also just because, you score so many points, this offense is so good that teams have to score on you. So, and they just don't have as many dominant players on defense. I know they have Vita Vea, and they've got Levante David, and, but, I don't think that they're going to be dominant on defense, but I don't think they need to. They just need to be average, and they're going to make the playoffs. I mean, this offense is going to really, really do a lot of the work whenever it comes. Obviously, I guess that's the wrong thing to say because, it's a team sport, so everybody's got to put in their part. But this offense is going to be really good this year, and I think it's what is probably the better words to use is take a lot of pressure off of the defense, just because that offense is going to be putting up so many touchdowns. I mean, I'm sure they'll probably average top 10 points per game this season. It's going to be great. It's good. They're going to be a fun watch. Baker Mayfield quarterbacking, and then Bucky Irving as the starting running back full season. I'm very excited to see Bucky Irving as the full-time starter. Rashad White's still great. Even Sean Tucker has great games, like occasionally. He had that one great game. I believe it was against the Saints last season. So they've got great weapons. And speaking of weapons, their draft, that might have been one of the top surprises of the draft when they selected Emeka Egbuka. I believe it was... I'm not seeing. I didn't put in my notes where he was drafted, but I know it was around in the 20s somewhere. But that really... that move really threw me off. I was for sure that they were going to go defense, but it feels like they just went best player available there. I mean, Jahdae Barron was still on the board. James Pierce Jr. was still on the board, who went to your division rival. Jahad Campbell was still on the board, who went to the best team in the league right now. I mean, there was a lot of good defensive players on the board that I think they could have taken there. But obviously they didn't think they needed to, especially because they addressed so much in the back end of the draft too. Back end is in just outside of the first round, I guess. That's not back end. But they took cornerbacks in the second and third round. I believe they drafted linemen as well later on, defensive linemen that is. But really I want to focus on the Emeka Egbuka pick. They have Mike Evans. They've got Chris Godwin. They just drafted Jalen McMillan with a relatively high pick last year. I believe he was a third rounder. And he performed last year too. So the Emeka Egbuka pick really surprised me. I think what their plan is Mike Evans is probably going to be retiring soon. I can't imagine him playing for any other team other than Tampa. So you would think that there's been communication of him retiring after this deal is up, right? I mean, that's what I think. And then Chris Godwin, he's had some injuries, and he's also, not crazy young either. Let's see. He's 29 years old, too. So to draft Emeka Egbuka, who was a beast at Ohio State, I mean, he has the school record for receptions and yards, and I believe he's top 10 in touchdowns as well. And OSU has, they could. There's a case for them to be a wide receiver university, but I don't think they are. But I mean, they have dudes that played for that school. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., San Antonio Holmes, Terry McLaurin, Michael Thomas. There was a lot of people who played at that school. And, for Emeka to have the record in receptions and yards is honestly insane. I think what Tampa looks at is what Seattle did, and Seattle's a great organization. I mean, they don't really do a lot wrong, and I think they look at what they did with JSN, who also went to Ohio State, and was a first-round pick. Seattle took him. They had Tyler Lockett already and DK Metcalf. I know DK Metcalf trade rumors had been circulating for years on end. But it finally happened this season or off season. But, everyone was like, wow, like, what's JSN going to be? The wide receiver 3 on this team, at least for the next couple years. And he was that his rookie year, and he showed flashes. I think it was just, not putting the pressure on him to perform was great for JSN. Not that he couldn't have done it. I'm sure he definitely could have balled. I mean, he's doing it. He did it last season in his second year, so he probably could have done it his rookie year too. But, they look at that and they see that he performed, and now the Bucs want to do that with Emeka. And Mike Evans will probably be out the door. I think they probably are going to have him start producing a lot and have a bigger role in year 2. Year 2 will probably be a big year for him. So, and I think if that's going to be your guy if he's going to be your next Mike Evans, and he's going to be around for like 8-9 years, it's definitely worth it to take him in the first round. So as long as they hit on that draft pick, it's going to be good. But that's a big if, because you don't know until they play. So, but that offense is going to be great. I mean, with your quarterback being Baker, you have that duo of Bucky Irving and Rachaad White with Sean Tucker as well in there. And then you also have, and that receiving core has got to be one of the best in the league, right? You've got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Egbuka, and Jalen McMillan. I mean, and they also drafted the guy out of Oregon, Tez Johnson as well. I know he really fell in the draft because of his size, but I mean, he could play at Oregon, he could play, and hopefully size doesn't basically derail his career. I mean, I'm sure he's in a great receiving core, so it'll be hard for him to get snaps, but I'm excited to watch training camp to see what he does there. But overall, Bucs are going to be a great team. I don't think there's much more to be said than they're going to be offensive heavy for sure. And, the defense just needs to be better than it was last year. Average would be great. If they have an average defense and their offense does the same thing or better than last season, I think they'll probably go 11-6. And I think they can also compete with teams, like the Lions in a playoff game or the Commanders in a playoff game. I mean, the only team that I really don't think that they would stand a chance against would be the Eagles, but also that could just be recency bias after the ass kicking that we saw in the Super Bowl and also in the NFC championship game too. I mean, just, maybe once we see the Eagles come down to earth again, maybe they'll feel beatable. But until then, I mean, they are they're giving me PTSD. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I think that they can go toe to toe with anybody in the NFC besides the Eagles. I think NFC Championship game is probably their ceiling, and we'll find out when the season starts. But overall, NFC South, I think that they are going to be the worst division in football, but they are definitely going to be more improved than last year. Really, if the Saints weren't in the division, I'd actually probably have them higher. They probably wouldn't even be this podcast. But, almost every division has a bad team. So had to be someone. I hate that it's the NFC South, but it had to be someone. And overall, yeah, the Buccaneers are going to be my prediction for the division winners. And then Atlanta will finish second. Carolina will finish third, and New Orleans will finish fourth. I hope you guys really enjoyed listening to this podcast. I'm trying to get it figured out, trying to get used to it. This is only the second one, really the first one. The intro video took me like 10 takes just to do. So hopefully it becomes more natural soon, and maybe we'll get some more background things too to make it more vibey. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed listening, and I'll see you guys next time.